All right, good morning, friends. We're going to start a regular public meeting of the LA County Sheriff Civilian Oversight Commission. My name is Sean Kennedy. I'm the chair of this commission right now, and I really appreciate the attendance that we have here today. The commission is the primary oversight body over the sheriff's department. We try to focus on the big issues and push the sheriff's department towards more transparency, more collaboration, more outward-looking conversations with the communities. Police and Sheriff Luna is here. Sheriff, really appreciate you being here. And we have several issues on our agenda. We have our regular reports, including the report of last Friday's special hearing on deputy gangs. We have a educational presentation on jail conditions, and we have to take up the issue of more subpoenas for the deputy gang special hearing. Former Sheriff Alex Villanueva testified for 4 hours, but it's difficult questioning because he doesn't answer questions easily or directly. So the issue was brought up that he would come again in March, and his former undersheriff, Timothy Murakami, continues to defy his subpoena. So we'll take that up as well. So we have a code of conduct, and maybe someone, well, I feel like our code of conduct is this. This is a professional environment. We have members of the department here. We have commissioners. We have many community organizers and activists. None of us all agree with each other, which is why we're all here. We're here to talk. My only request is that we respect each other and make our points professionally and respectfully. I know that makes some people mad, and they tell me the First Amendment. I don't want to violate anyone's First Amendment rights, but I do want everyone to hear each other, and I especially want the sheriff and his leadership team to hear what you're saying. And that doesn't happen if it's all shouting and yelling or following people out of the building. And people, whenever that happens, we don't meet our mission, which is like sitting down together and talking. So I'm not saying that to target anyone. I'm saying it to remind us all we're all in this together. Okay, so now we have the roll call. Daniel?
I'm going to make an announcement first of all, and then I'll take the roll call.
Okay.
Good morning. If you wish to speak in person today and you haven't yet, please turn in your public comment card at the table with the public comment sign. If you're remote, raise your hand in WebEx or press *3 on the phone. Each person who signs up for public comment will have 2 minutes to speak. For each agenda item, Chair Kennedy will call for public comment after all discussion. General public comment will be heard at the end of the meeting. We will make a brief Spanish announcement, or I'll make the brief Spanish announcement. Buenos días y bienvenidos. La participación pública en nuestras reuniones es uno de nuestros objetivos principal y agradecemos sus comentarios en persona y a través de WebEx, por teléfono y por escrito. Habrá una oportunidad para comentarios públicos sobre cada tema de la agenda y al final durante los comentarios general. Para los temas de la agenda, el Chair Kennedy presentará el tema, se escucharán las presentaciones, los miembros de la comisión discutirán el tema y después se tomarán los comentarios del público. Si desea comentar en persona, complete una tarjeta de los comentarios y entréguesela a un miembro del personal en la mesa asignada con el cartel del comentario público. Si está participando por WebEx, levante la mano y selecciona la imagen de la mano si quiere comentar. Si llamó para escuchar la reunión, oprima la tecla de la estrella y el número 3 en su teléfono para activar la función de la mano levantada. Les pedimos a todos los participantes que van a comentar que sus comentarios cumplan con el código de la conducta de la comisión. Todos los participantes que van a dar un comentario tendrán 2 minutos para comentar, a menos que el Chair Kennedy determine lo contrario en el tiempo asignado. I will go ahead and call roll call. Chair Sean Kennedy,
Here.
Vice Chair James Hicks,
Present.
Commissioner Robert Bonner, Commissioner Irma Higgins Cooper.
Rob is sick today, so he won't be here.
Thank you. Commissioner Irma Higgins Cooper. Commissioner Luis Garcia.
Present.
Commissioner Patricia Giggins. Commissioner James Harris.
Here.
Commissioner Hans Johnson. Chair Kennedy, we have a quorum. I turn it back to you.
Thank you. So we have to do the consent calendar from our last meeting on December 14th of last year. Is there any objection? Do we need to do anything else? No one objects. It sounds like the consent calendar is approved.
Motion.
Oh, we need a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll move. Second.
And Jamon seconds it. No objection, so it's approved. And now it's already the time for public comment.
We have no public comment on this
Okay.
item, Chair Kennedy.
All right, so the crowd isn't revved up yet, so we'll move on to family impact remarks. This is a time where people who have been impacted by interactions with the sheriff are allowed to speak. We don't have a short time frame. We have more time for those families. Do we have anyone?
There's no public comments, Chair Kennedy.
Okay, so we'll move to the reports. I'm scheduled to report on our special hearing. We held a special hearing. It was our 9th on deputy gangs at Loyola Law School. And after a couple years of refusing to honor his subpoena, former Sheriff Villanueva did testify under oath. It took about 4 hours. A transcript is being prepared, which will be posted with all the other transcripts on our website. Our special counsel felt that there was more questioning to be done because it's very difficult to get a response. And so we spoke with it, and the former sheriff agreed to return in March to finish his testimony. We also have the outstanding issue of former Undersheriff Murakami continuing to flout his oversight subpoena. So that issue remains. My understanding is that he has filed a flurry of documents in LA Superior Court trying to bar this commission from moving forward on its hearing to seek a judicial order requiring him to comply with our previous oversight subpoena. So the contempt hearings remain, and there are other motions. I think he's asked for a protective order and has filed documents under seal that were not given to this commission, which he says explain his medical excuse. So stay tuned. My next thing is we're missing a commissioner since Lael Rubin resigned. And Lael was a community appointee. And that process of selecting a new community appointee commissioner so that we have a full commission is ongoing. It's just taking some time. We're really trying to get it right. So within the next few meetings, probably, we'll give you an update about how that process is going. That's all I have to report. So I'm going to turn it over to our able new executive director, Charmaine Mosley, for her report.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. My name is Charmaine Mosley, and I am the Executive Director for the Commission. Since the last meeting in December, we've made it past the holidays, thank goodness, and have been very, very active. Some of our activities include staff attendance at last night's LASD's Altadena Station Community Advisory Committee meeting to listen and observe. We intend to have a more regular presence at other meetings throughout the county in the future as well. Staff members also participated in upcoming community events and meetings, which include a Justice Resource and Voter Registration Fair in East LA on Sunday, January 28th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. We will be staffing a table there, and I will also be in attendance. This event is hosted by Supervisor Solis and the ARC. We're also looking for additional community events that we can participate in. So if you are aware of anything or any events going on, please let me know. As I am meeting with community members and those individuals who have been impacted, they are letting me know that they want to see COC out there more often and attending these events and getting to know the community. In January, I'll also be taking a media training refresher. So I look forward to learning new ways to communicate with the commission's key messages to our media partners. If any commissioners are interested in media training or refresher, please reach out to our staff. Related to internal operations and staffing, our senior paralegal for the operation went on to the OIG's office. We mentioned that at our last meeting in December. So our team is working on trying to get 2 other positions that will be community services focused. So we are working on that. That might be a long process, but we'll try to speed it up some. We are also looking forward to our new Deputy Executive Director coming on board in February. Let's see.
Is that it, Charmaine?
No, that's
Okay.
not it. I
Sorry.
have a lot more to go. Sorry. So attached to the agenda, you'll find the 2024 tactical plan of goals and priorities. At the December 14th meeting, the commission approved a list of goals and priorities for 2024. Staff incorporated the list into a tactical plan with objectives, goals, and measurables for the commission, so there is a path on how to reach these goals. This plan will continue to be revised, updated as each goal is met. If you have additional feedback on the goals priorities, please let me know. And that this is also for a commission. If you have, when you're reviewing the tactical plan, it might look different than what was voted on at the last meeting, but we incorporated all of the goals or objectives that the commission voted on at the last meeting. And commission staff will also work to support the commissioners through this tactical plan. I see Commissioner Anderson is in attendance also, so I wanted to note that. For a legislative update, on January 9th, the Board of Supervisors adopted a motion on that will require LASD to report back to the board with their plans to implement AB 2773, which requires peace officers making traffic or pedestrian stops to state the reason for the stop before engaging in questioning related to a criminal investigation or traffic violation. This became effective at the beginning of this year. Commission staff is continuing to monitor this motion and preparing a request for LASD to provide the commission with a presentation on 2024 new laws and the public safety impacts. I would also like to provide an update on the meet and confer process regarding Measure R, and I'm going to turn it over to our county counsel, Amara Kirby.
Hello, is this on? Good morning, everybody. Let's see. Sorry, I didn't have that ready. Here we go. Yes, so as many of you know, there's an unfair practice charge filed by the Sheriff's Union, ALADS, with ERCOM, the Employee Relations Commission, and that meet and confer process has been ongoing as to the effects of the legislation of the COC's ordinance and Measure R and their subpoena authority. So the last meet and confer was in January, and the next one will take place in February 27th. And the next ERCOM hearing, and that is April 15th. As a side, there was a second unfair practice charge filed as it relates to OIG's investigation and a request to interview deputies. that has kind of also been related in those meet and confer process. The next trial court setting in that matter that got filed in Superior Court is March 12th. That's all I have.
Could you tell us how long this meet and confer process regarding our subpoena power has been ongoing?
Sure. The original unfair practice charge was filed July 28th, 2020 by ALADS, and then the subsequent one by the Professional Peace Officers Association was December 28th of that year.
So so over 3 years, we're meeting and
A
conferring.
lot of that predated me. I can say that, and I know it took some time for things to get set. I know there was over 7 meet and confers last year alone.
Okay, so do you have any predictions for how long the process is going to last? Because I just want to say we have a county ordinance, a Measure R, the voters themselves approved our subpoena power at, I think, 73% of the voters supporting that in LA County. And we have a state law. And yet we are meeting and conferring with the deputies union for over 3 years. Do we know about what?
I do know that there's been, different policy revisions or proposals by each side. And, I am not an expert in terms of that. We have a labor employment division of county council that is supervising the whole meet and confer. I am a part of that in support of the COC, the OIG, of course. And as I've learned more about it, it does take a lot of time. And there has to be a good faith effort, et cetera. So I know that the experts and the attorneys on that are going to make sure that we do that before any kind of last, best, and final offers are made or any decisions to declare impasse. But, I think just as a matter of point, the county doesn't have to agree to anything necessarily, like we have to bargain and in good faith. But at the end of the day, we can declare impasse. So we're just kind of going through that process. And
Well, it sounds, Aaron, it sounds like we're there. It's been over 3 years. Maybe it's time for a last, best, and final offer.
no, I hear you. And
Okay,
yeah, thanks.
thank you.
Thank you, Amara. So lastly, we have, staff has drafted the 2023 annual report for commissioner feedback that will be sent out to commissioners shortly. And next month, hopefully we'll have it on the next meeting agenda. So that's all I have to report. Anyone has any questions, please let me know. Commissioners have any questions?
Any questions? Okay, so next we have the report from our Inspector General.
I'll start, Chair Kennedy, with the meet and confer that you were discussing. I share your concerns. I stepped into the Measure R meet and confer process by going down to ERCOM and answering their questions candidly because the county was not, I think, effectively meeting and conferring, which ERCOM asked them to do, and we essentially thought we didn't legally have to do, so we declined. And I think that was a tactical error that ate up some of those years. Now there's an actual process going on, and I'm involved in a meet and confer process relating to our gang investigation because the court ruled that we needed to meet and confer, that we were not permitted to enforce state law until we had met and conferred with the union regarding the employment impacts of following the law. I don't agree with that opinion, and we are appealing it with county councils. We're not doing it. County council is appealing it at the appellate court level. So I hope that the appellate court says, no, state law is state law, and you can't wait to enforce it until you've discussed what impacts it might have in the workplace. But currently, the order of the court is meet and confer. So we're meeting and conferring. And in that process, I share your frustration because very quickly it became clear that the position of the unions was that POBAR applies to Inspector General investigations. And it is my position that they do not, that the Inspector General's office is not part of the Sheriff's Department. We're much more akin, especially under these new California statutes, to the Attorney General's office. We're an outside body investigating externally, and therefore the POBAR protections do not apply. That I hope will get resolved in this process. But in the meet and confer, every single meeting involves a whole bunch of one side saying one legal position and the other side saying a different legal position. So I believe we're at an impasse and we need to go to the court to have the court say which is legally correct, and then we'll be able to make some progress. County council is always, as you were just hearing, of the opinion that we have to be careful in how we do that. So they are going through a process. They have not said no to me. They've said yes, but it hasn't happened either. So we're in that process, as you are in the Measure R process, although it's an imperfect and slow process, and it drives me nuts. So that's the special counsel's assessment of that process. So you understand that your words are not falling on deaf ears, although it seems like they are. There are people trying to do something, and as you know, that's how bureaucracy wins in the end. Always, it slows everything down to a glacial pace, and then nothing happens. So sadly, that's the world we live in. Next part of my report is on actual reports that we've issued. We recently issued a 1421 report. That's the new law encouraging additional openness in police records. County council has been tasked with taking over that function because the sheriff's department has always allocated a very small number of people, usually 1 to 3 at most, to respond to PRA requests, even though the sheriff's department has a 40 or 50 person Sheriff's Information Bureau that mainly does PR and doesn't do PRA requests. So county council's been tasked with taking that over. There's 2 things in the way of that. One is the sheriff's department initially refused to give them access to the records necessary to do that. They've been engaged in a long meet and confer, if you will, between the 2 parties, and I believe it has at long last borne fruit in the form of an MOU between them about how the heck they're going to get that done. So nothing has been done in that regard on that process. The other piece of it is, again, back to just bureaucratic problems. County council has to gear up to create a new unit that never existed before. They have to hire people, they have to do a bunch of stuff, and that's been incredibly slow. So even if the sheriff's department had been fully open in the beginning, they wouldn't be up to speed yet. So we're getting there on that one too. And that's that's a sort of a summary of the report that we just dropped, and it's on our website if anyone wants to look at it. We also, as noted in your agenda, dropped 2 months ago a report for the 3rd quarter of the last year. It has all the statistical information that we usually include, but it also has a discussion of the problem of guns and alcohol mixing with off-duty police officers. That was presented to the board, and the sheriff's department came and discussed it a bit, and I think the board found their response unsatisfying, as did I. It's one of many reforms that we recommended. We issued a report card under the former sheriff in which he did not benefit well, because I think he got something like 11 out of 111 that he actually implemented. We're issuing a new report card on that. We're working with the sheriff's department to make sure it's accurate, and it will come out soon. And the new sheriff's department has done a few more, but not a lot. And many of them, they haven't engaged in any meaningful way, and that's one of them. So the board has put out a motion that they're going to vote on next Tuesday regarding the guns and alcohol. And I hope that it encourages the sheriff's department to be more enthusiastic in its addressing of this problem. Because
Can you explain the guns and alcohol? I mean,
yeah, it's a common law enforcement practice that off-duty peace officers are welcome to drink and while holding a gun in their hand or having it on their hip, which I think is insane. It is a practice across the country. Small numbers, much like when George Floyd was killed and the public rose up and said, you know, chokeholds are a bad idea. And law enforcement, which had largely not outlawed chokeholds, then stood up and outlawed chokeholds as though they were surprised to hear anybody say that, and then, you know, passed a whole bunch of laws. Same thing with this. I think there'll become a point where we, the public, will say, no, that's not acceptable. If 5 deputies want to go to a bar and drink, they can have a designated shooter. The rest of us get to have designated drivers. They can have a designated shooter. Because the legitimate law enforcement concern is that when they're out and about, they may be recognized by somebody who they have, you know, done their duty as to, and they may be attacked or something. So that's the reason they carry the guns off duty. Plus, when you're a peace officer, you have a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week duty to do something if there's a crime in your presence. So the general idea that peace officers should carry guns off duty, I think, is a good one, both for their safety and for our safety. But not when you're drinking. Because as we all know, as soon as you take a drink, your judgment starts to change, and that's a problem. Not when you're at an 08. When you're at an 08, you're drunk. And when you're at an 02 or have had a drink or two, you are impaired in terms of your judgment. It happens immediately. So we have encouraged the department to have a much more clear policy that says, if you are armed off duty, you do not drink. Don't pick up a drink and drink it. If you're at home and you want to drink, put your gun away. If you suddenly are faced with an active shooter situation and you're intoxicated and there's nothing that can be done but you draw your gun and try to shoot straight, okay, put in an exception for that. But the current rules are, if you get up to around an 08, then we think maybe maybe you might be intoxicated, but it's a rebuttable presumption. And we're kind of, in the same way that the rest of us have for DUIs, which having prosecuted a lot of DUIs in my life, let's say it's a generous standard for the public. A lot of people get off on DUI charges when they shouldn't. A lot of people die because of people who hitting them who were way below an 08. So the idea that there ought to be some level of alcohol and guns permitted, I find very disturbing. So like I say, I don't have any problem with having a designated shooter. You go to the bar, one guy keeps his gun and doesn't drink. And then that person will hopefully have better judgment. If we have to put our lives in the hands of law enforcement and give them the choice of life and death over all of us at any moment, then there ought to come some restrictions with it. That's my position. That's kind of what that report says, although in more bureaucratic, drawn-out language. And we made a bunch of recommendations and they were ignored. And so now the board is pushing a little harder on that. So I appreciate that. And the other piece that you'll see this next Tuesday on the board's motions for them to consider is one relating to the industry Indians. I'm sure you all read the article in the paper recently about the Sheriff's Department identifying a group in industry and firing 2 deputies because not just because of an outside of the Sheriff's Department incident in which they used violence and threats against citizens, but also 2 of them were tattooed members of the Indians, a group we hadn't heard about previously. And purportedly under the Times, one of them, his tattoo is number 58. And we all know what that means, those of us who have been working in this area for a while. That means there's 57 other Indians running around. And we know at least, right? That's the what we know for certain. And as we all know, that also means it's an exclusive group, right? The idea of a station tattoo where people just get a tattoo because they love their station, that doesn't get a sequential tattoo. So a sequential number means somebody had to give you permission to join. It's the sort that could be a law enforcement gang. And you immediately need to know who are the members and what's the demographic makeup of that group. Are they, but based on race and gender, are they representative of the department as a whole, or are only certain people welcome? And you immediately must answer that question to know if that's a gang. And yet the Sheriff's Department fired those folks for PC 13670, their policy equivalent, but didn't have them name names. Didn't identify the 57 other members plus, and didn't conduct that investigation as to that group. So
Do we know why not?
I have speculation, but no. But that's the motion. The motion is for the constitutional policing officer, who is based on board budgeting, supposed to be trying to address these issues, to come to this body, to your ad hoc, and present in writing a detailed explanation about what happened there, to answer the question you just asked, along with a bunch of other questions. So I'm very pleased with that, both because it continues an agenda of this commission, which is to try to get access to the things that are kept secret. And as we've all discussed, there's a Brown Act element to that, and ad hoc committees don't trigger the Brown Act, or at least that's the hope. So there will be a discussion regarding that. We'll see if that passes. We'll see if it passes legal muster, if it draws challenges. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm very glad that it's happening, because as we just discussed, thanks to the Times reporting, we're able to talk about something that is otherwise secret. And as you all know, it's very hard to conduct oversight when there's a veil of secrecy over everything. So that's a very encouraging step, and I'm very pleased about it. We have a report that we issued, as I mentioned, 2 months ago. I'm not going to talk about it, but if anybody has any questions, we'll answer it. I also have present Megan Brownlee with my office and Catherine Wright, who work in custody. They're here primarily because your staff will be talking about custody matters in a little bit, and they're here to answer any questions you have regarding our observations in that area, which of course is an important one. And other than that, I have nothing else to report, but I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Any questions?
Yes, I just wanted to ask about another recent disclosure involving newly revealed records involving the Waldron Johnson deputy shooting, involving deputy gang members who had a tattoo shot off the ankle of one alleged deputy gang member from the Antelope Valley. Deputy Waldron shot off the tattoo of Deputy Johnson in an incident that initially appeared to be blocked from having further reporting or further evidence made public about that. But in the last week has been reporting about the newly disclosed records. And one of the aspects that I think caught my attention and relates to exactly the problem that you're outlining, Max, is the inconsistency of arguments being made and efforts to obfuscate and block any disclosure of records using spurious arguments. One of which was that allegedly the reporter had to be an eyewitness to the shooting itself in order for any evidence to be made public about that. I just want to ask if there is anything that you believe this commission can do to address inconsistent arguments being made and dilatory and completely specious legal arguments being made to block the effectiveness of SB 1421 or other transparency measures.
I think the most effective thing this commission can do is what it just did with the Villanueva hearing. In that hearing, there was a discussion regarding a 2014 county council opinion that for which the board has not waived privilege, but it was requested by a sitting sheriff. And then a sitting sheriff made false public statements about the opinion. And there is at least a body of case law that suggests that is a waiver of that privilege. And this commission and its special counsel, Mr. Dykesler, as well as the members of the ad hoc committee, have very aggressively challenged county council in private and to some degree in public regarding this matter. And I think that was a very productive thing to do because it's not exactly the same issue, but it boils down to the same thing, which is county council is charged with representing the larger legal interests of the county, not just reform, but also anti-reform. The interests of the establishment, the interests of bureaucracy and things moving on the way they are, the interests of the sheriff's department in excluding us from certain matters that they want to keep secret, the interests of the board in getting reelected. All these interests fall at the feet of county council when they become legal matters. And as you can imagine, and as you know, that makes it complex. Some people would call that a conflict of interest. I don't
Yes.
think, yes, sir, I understand that you do. I don't look at it that way because to me, having been a prosecutor of a set of laws that use conflict of interest as a technical term, I think it's something else. But whatever it is, it's a problem. That's for sure. And so you will find county council taking what I would call inconsistent positions. County council advises us and supports us in many of our efforts and has in the 10 years I've been here. But at the same time, they aggressively support the sheriff's department in blocking whistleblower efforts to bring things to light or to be compensated for their mistreatment, either employees or members of the public, efforts to look at matters that the legislature has said should be public. And county council aggressively supports the efforts to fight that. And that's a problem. You could make a declaration and send it to the board. You could make all sorts of requests. You can make a lot of noise, and all those things wouldn't necessarily be bad things. But the thing that was done at the Villanueva hearing, I think, was the most effective protest I've seen in quite a while. And I believe this commission and its agents were on the right side in that. And I hope that when the ripples for that are done echoing across the county, other people who look at it closely will agree. Certainly, the county should not be taking positions against state laws for transparency, especially when we look at them and see that they're right. I mean, the case you talk about that happened up with alcohol and guns involved, and then amazingly, a tattoo got shot. And I've heard a story about how that wasn't quite the coincidence that some would like us to believe, and I'm pretty sure that investigation was not as thorough as it could have been. That's all ancient history now. It was allowed to pass by, but it's also a very representative example of the impact of groups that are potentially deputy gangs and of behavior run amok without any consequence. So I'm glad this commission's asking about it. And I would support any effort you want to make to try to encourage the board and the sheriff's department to improve its response to these things. But don't feel like you're not doing that, because the things that you push on, I'll push that way. If we ever become a county that is actively trying to do the right thing rather than do the convenient thing, then all these boats will be lifted by that tide. And the work that this body has done in favor of transparency, in favor of accountability, in favor of just not having gangs within the sheriff's department as California law requires, all that work, I think, pushes the same direction.
And I think it's worth noting in this week of Martin Luther King that he talked something about convenience and politic and what was right and what was important to do because it was right. I think it's important to remember those words.
And that's why this group was put together, right? That's why all of you were selected. You're people who don't behave and who object when things don't go right. And, I can't tell you how much I appreciate having you around, because I spend a lot of time working with other folks who are under the thumb, like myself. I get a paycheck. And so we got to behave. You all don't get paychecks, so you don't have to behave. And I appreciate your volunteer lack of behavior. Thank you. Keep it up.
Anyone else? I appreciate that, Max. I just want to say that while the special counsel was trying to confront former Sheriff Villanueva with his false and misleading statements about the 2014 County Council legal memo, as well as the 2021 County Council legal memo, he was receiving texts or emails from a senior county council instructing them that he was not allowed to engage in that line of questioning because it was attorney-client privileged, and the board supposedly has declined to waive the privilege, and that it would be unethical to do so. So that's a real problem that our special counsel, as he questions the witness, is being chilled by the county council in the middle of the testimony. Nor has the Board of Supervisor ever, to my knowledge, responded to my written request that they waive the attorney-client privilege, and Priscilla Ochen, the prior chair's written requested them to waive the privilege. So I really don't know what the Board of Supervisors position is, because they've never really told us. They've never given us the courtesy of a response to our requests. It's 9:41 and we have the sheriff only a short while because he has obligations. And so I'm going to take the LASD report out of order in case Sheriff Luna, you want to tell us anything.
Well, good morning and Happy New Year to everybody. Hans, you talked about Dr. King and the celebration on Monday, which a large contingency of LA County Sheriff members participated in that parade gladly, in partnership with our community. There's a quote, I'll just throw that out there because it sits on my wall for any of you who have come into my office. And it says, there comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe nor political, nor popular, but he must take it because his conscience tells him it's the right thing to do. That's on my wall. Dr. King, for me, is somebody I look at as a hero, always have been. He inspires me every day. So as we talk about these things, I'm sitting here, listening, taking notes. I see smiles and giggles. I'm not smiling and giggling. I consider this a very serious issue. I don't agree with 100% of it, but most of it I do. And even though the parts I don't agree with, I take notes. I go back to our people. And in the spirit of making things better, that's the goal. And I think that can not only be said for the members of the LA County Sheriff's Department, but other county employees who I've worked with for over a year now, who work very hard, very committed to this job and trying to do the right thing. And yeah, there's times where I'm in meetings where I get frustrated because things aren't going my way or the way they should go. But you know what? It's not an easy job, but I chose to do it because I care. So with that being said, I do want to start off by welcoming our new executive director, Charmaine Mosley. Welcome aboard. And not only welcome to this commission, but Los Angeles County. I look forward, although we've had conversations, to sit down and talk more in depth about how we move forward and truly look at the mission that we all have and accomplish it for all the right reasons. I also going to be here for a little bit to answer questions as much as I can, but taking my place will be Assistant Sheriff Myron Johnson. He was just appointed as our new Assistant Sheriff over all patrol operations. I'm very proud of him and not only being promoted here recently, but his lifelong work, his commitment, his sacrifices, and I look forward to him being part of a team that is taking us to the next level, which one of his primary missions, other than community engagement partnerships, is he and his team are in the process of presenting a crime reduction strategy that impacts the entire county of Los Angeles. So that when we talk about crime rates, whether it's violent crime or property crime, we're not making excuses. We're looking at data. It's data driven. We're working in partnership with the community. And at the end of the day, our primary function is to reduce crime and make people feel safe in this county. And that'll be his primary obligation. So just a second there, Myron will be up here at the microphone. And then most of you know Commander Hugo Macias. He's our custody expert in all matters related to custody. So as you ask custody questions, he'll be up here answering those questions to make sure that you're getting accurate or the best and most accurate information that we can give you. And all of these employees who are here today, same thing, we take notes, we learn, we try and get better with everything that we're doing. I do want to quickly mention that yesterday, we had an all-day leadership conference with the Sheriff's Department. Sorry, I took the mic away there for a second. And I just wanted to go over the agenda. It's the second one we've had since I've been there. I've been there just a little over a year. And I wanted to kind of highlight the agenda items that were on here. I opened up and I made sure that, and this is for all the captains and above in our department. So it's a room full of our leadership. And I wanted to talk about or communicate, reiterate our department's vision, our priorities, their role in realizing as we move forward, how we're going to be moving forward together, their specific role for our department and how we're going to better serve our community. I opened up with that. Director Eileen Decker got into our settlement agreements that we have, all 5 of them, and getting more into detail of what they are, where we've been out of compliance, the priority of getting into compliance, why that's critical to public trust, and then the path forward on how we're going to do that. There is a lot of work to do there. I realize that, but I think I have the team around me. to do that. And based on speaking with our federal monitors in all areas, they are seeing progress. But again, a lot of work to do, but there is progress that's seldomly talked about because everybody focuses on just the negative. For the first time in the history of the department, we spent a decent amount of time talking about deputy gangs, cliques, and subgroups. We've had an internal group that has been working on it. I thought they did a really good job of presenting their information. We're actually going to be putting out training videos that impact all the way from the time a deputy gets hired through the academy and continuous about the negativity surrounding this issue. It was a very difficult conversation, but one that was absolutely necessary, and more importantly, reiterated my expectations that this behavior is 100% unacceptable. And we have a lot of work to do in it. And again, we just talked about it in the last 15 minutes. Some of the examples, a lot of the examples we're giving are things that have happened in the past. I don't hide from it. We have to confront it. That's the only way we're going to move ahead. But I can also sit here and tell you when we're talking about the LA Times article about the case out of industry, I will not get into details about that case. And it's not because I have something to hide. It's because my priority is to get rid of any individual involved in that kind of activity. And not only get rid of them administratively, but prosecute them to the full extent of the law whenever we can do that. And if I sit up here and talk about details publicly, I give ammunition to the other side. That is not what I'm here to do. I don't care about headlines. I don't care about making a splash. I care about making a difference long term in a problem that's been, unfortunately, with us for too many decades. So when I talk to you about this training, the videos that are going to come out, extensive messaging, this does not happen overnight. It's going to happen. We're learning in the process. I can tell you this, that beyond this Indian case, there are other gang type cases that we're investigating. I'm not going to get into the details of those. Some are administrative in nature, some are criminal in nature. And every time we're doing one of these, we're learning through the process and we're making mistakes. We're getting better. We're taking corrective action, but we'll continue to move forward. So for anyone who says that we're not doing anything about gangs, I will challenge anybody that we may not be doing it to the liking of some individuals to the extent that they believe we should. But man, that old Chinese proverb, if you're going to take 1,000 steps, where do you start? With the first step, right? We're taking those first steps. Sometimes I get impatient, a lot slower than I would like. Moving on with the agenda, we went over nonprofits, protocols, because that's something, like many things coming into a department, a great department with great people, there are changes that need to be made regarding policies and processes that we've had. So we talked about protocols that needed to be revamped, along with many other things. We're very much focused on employee wellness. Dr. Sito, our lead psychologist, talking about everything we learned in the last year, then moving forward in how we're going to improve employee wellness, because if we improve employee wellness, we ultimately improve the service that we're providing to our community, because at the end of the day, it is about our community. Talked about personnel, recruitment and retention, which is a significant challenge throughout the United States with all law enforcement agencies. We had Superior Court CEO David Slayton come in and give a presentation on pre-arraignment release protocols, which from his presentation, which we were working hand in hand with them, with the courts, to make sure we were moving forward and finding a balance of being constitutional from a custody perspective, but then public safety is always obviously our priority. Things are going very well there. And then we discussed through through our Office of Constitutional Policing, the resources, that office is still being put together. There are still hiring that's going on. The people are getting used to each other, what they're doing, but a big portion of what they're doing is community engagement. So I was very happy to see that a lot of our captains from our 23 stations were very passionate about getting our folks out to further engage our community. And then we talked about technology. We are now finally going to move forward with trying to purchase a new CAD system. We're in the process there. We're putting something out for a reporting management system. All these systems have been ignored, unfortunately. And I say ignored, I'm not pointing the finger at any individuals. They just haven't been prioritized. So coming forward to our board and others who will support better technology for our community so that we don't fall behind, whether it's through 911 calls and better transparency. I would love for community members to get on the internet and be able to identify what's, for example, some of the crime trends are in their specific neighborhoods without going into specific addresses, because those are privacy matters. But that information would help us. So that's an overview of that. And I really do look forward to working with you in accomplishing your goals, having tough conversations, tough questions. That's what I'm here for. But at the end of the day, people do demand that there are changes. And I think some of them are going a lot slower. That's been very well described here. The processes that we go through, they are slow and they are cumbersome. But that doesn't mean we stop trying. So that's just a quick overview. Before I turn it over to any questions, Mr. Chair, that I can answer for any of you, I just want to remind everybody this coming weekend, a lot of us will be in Monterey Park for the 1-year anniversary of the mass shooting that occurred there. So I'll be participating with the community there, just supporting each other, reminding each other. And you'll hear me talking a little bit more about guns and the fact that we have a gun epidemic in this country, and too many people are being killed by guns, and that's something that we need to do a little bit more about. I said the last thing, but I'm remembering some of the questions you were asking in regards to the policy as it relates to alcohol and guns, as I'm talking about. I sit here as a person, I can't say I don't drink, but I seldomly ever do drink. Just not my thing. I do believe that as a police officer, as a deputy sheriff, you have a significant amount of personal responsibility that if you're carrying if you choose to carry a firearm off duty, which a lot of our employees do, some don't, that you should not ever be in a situation where you're overindulging in alcohol. So I am not ignoring the request to modify our policies. I am encouraging our folks. As a matter of fact, our Office of Constitutional Policing has, their staff has been going out looking at best practices around the country. Some may argue, what do you need to look at best practices for? We should just prohibit it. Well, if you start looking at details, and for those of you who go out to dinner and drink a glass of wine, and if you are armed, is that something we should prohibit? Those are some of the details that we're looking at, because we want it to be lawful. We want it to be, it needs to have common sense attached to it, but in no shape or way or form will I ever condone any of my employees going out and getting drunk and carrying a gun and being irresponsible. But at the same time, please remember, and this separates the alcohol part of it, we have had instances where we've had a deputy murdered off duty and he was unarmed. So there are situations and examples that we can draw back to our experience as we move forward with a policy that I believe will work for all of us. And I actually believe once we set it, I want it to be the best in the country. I want to lead in this area because honestly, we're looking at examples and there's not very many good ones out there yet that I've seen. So.
Thank you, Sheriff. Are there any questions from the commission? Irma?
I have a question about the examples that you gave for the game.
I want everyone to hear you.
I have a question concerning the statement you made about the examples in the game training. I understand that it's not appropriate to use current cases, but I think it is appropriate to use past cases because they are realistic and they have happened in our community. So I hope you sort of consider actual cases versus some type of made up example to use in the training.
I appreciate that. I don't disagree with you at all.
Sean, can I be heard? This is Rob.
Yes.
Yeah, Sheriff Rob Bonner. I'm a little under the weather today, so I'm not present. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
All right. I respect not getting into details of any active investigations involving deputy gangs and cliques. But I would say, and you cited the I think it's a Chinese proverb of the 1,000 steps. The first step, though, in getting rid of deputy gangs and cliques is having a policy, a clear policy that bans membership, participation in deputy gangs and deputy cliques. That needs to be prioritized. And if the negotiation process with ALADS is bogged down, you need, in my opinion, Sheriff, you need to separate out those two clear policy recommendations of the Civilian Oversight Commission, which is to ban participation in joining deputy gangs and deputy cliques. And that would send the message. That message needs to be sent. And I realize you've been talking about the meet and confer process, but there are a lot of different policy changes that are being proposed by the sheriff that are involved in those negotiations. My recommendation is that you separate out those two policy recommendations and get them put in place. And so you actually, if there are people after going forward that have join a deputy gang or a deputy clique, they can be subject to discipline. Right now, that cannot happen. And I know I'm going to ask you the same question, when are we going to get there? But I'm telling you how to get there now. You need to separate them out and prioritize them and get them put into place. And I would ask you to do that.
Yes, sir. In a sense, I don't disagree with you. We can have a separate confidential conversation because we've had this. That process, and if you've been part of or you listen to part of the conversation, and I'm sorry you're feeling ill today. Meet and confer process is lengthy. It's cumbersome. I've said this over and over. I want this done. But I just want to make sure everybody understands this is not my process. My job, and it's not done yet, is to draft a policy, which we did. It's drafted. This commission was a big part of that. The Inspector General has been a part of that. Our monitors have been a part of that. And then now it's in that meet and confer process, which is a county process. And we could sit here and have an entire session on the county process as it relates to meet and confer. But at the end of the day, I have to follow it. And that's what I'm doing. And we will continue to move forward, push as hard as we can. But please remember this as well. And I think I've stated this, but I'm going to state it again. We are in the process of catching up with multiple policies. I would say the two biggest things, and if somebody disagrees with me, that's okay, that we consistently discuss in here are the issue of deputy gangs and use of force. Those two policies, we came in and started revamping to make sure that we were meeting legal obligations. Those are two of well over a dozen policies that we're meeting and conferring on right now. And even as this discussion takes place, it sounds really good to say, well, we want a policy on guns and alcohol. 100% accurate. That's another meet and confer that's going to take place. So every time this body says we need a new policy, yes, we draft it. It goes through a process, and then it has to go through meet and confer. The last time I was here, we talked about a policy regarding vigils. Couldn't agree more. That's drafted. I think I've got to double check on the drafting of that. That's going to go through a meet and confer process. So sorry for that lengthy response, but I hear your frustration. I see the frustration here with the other commissioners, and we will continue with the process, the legal process that is established when we are impacting working conditions with our employees.
Thank
Well,
you.
we
No,
we've mentioned Proverbs here a couple times, but there's another proverb that says even a stopped clock is right twice a day. And at the testimony on Friday, the defeated former sheriff said it's meet and confer, not meet and defer. And I raised that not to in any way give credibility to a disgraced former public servant, but to note that there are going to be pot shots taken against you and the department by someone now running for office in your part of the county in Metro Long Beach over that issue. And I want to be clear that we are likely to face amplification of that line of attack over the policy from someone with no credibility on the issue of deputy gangs. But I wanted to ask, how do you stand up to the likelihood of that becoming not just an argument or a discussion that we're having here, but one that is likely to take on greater traction for Angelenos over the next year?
Yeah, I don't, number one, and most importantly, I don't disagree. And I'm not uncomfortable when you're saying, where's the policy? We need a policy. 100%. But the other underlying message I'm sending here is, although we need a policy, I'm not waiting for a policy. We see misconduct, it comes to our attention, I'm attacking. I'm using everything within the law, our policies, to try and impact any issues that one can argue. And I'm not going to get into the past. I believe in looking forward, that without ignoring the past, of course, that more is being done today than it has been. So to that question is, whether it's training we're doing, drafting policy, even being in a meet and confer about gangs, having active investigations, both criminal and administrative, nobody can sit here and tell me we're not addressing this or trying to progress forward. That would be completely 100% false.
Patty, you've been waiting very patiently.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I just want to say, this discussion that we're having now with the presence of Sheriff Luna is lifting me up a bit. After last week's hearing, which I believe is our 7th hearing. Ninth hearing on deputy gangs, on top of all the other investigations and reports that have come out. Having to listen to 4 hours of denial and obfuscation that they don't exist, and you have to wait for this obscure behavior as if we haven't seen behaviors. You know, we are talking about beyond tattoos. So today, and so I left feeling, last week I left feeling a bit discouraged to having to revisit. And denial, you know, is a very powerful human thing that we do, right? And obfuscation is a tactic to confuse and deflect. So today, you know, I'm feeling re-energized, and Sheriff Luna, I'm quoting you on two things I wrote down, and I know one is coming from Dr. King, which I believe we all respect the idea of doing what's right, which is what this commission has been about. What the community members who come here over the last 7 years, 6, 7 years, that's what they're telling us, to do what's right. To hear our current sheriff say, let's do what's right, and also get rid of. I hear loud and clear this commitment to getting rid of deputy gangs. Just those 3 words are so clear. Get rid of. And it's so key. I mean, Sheriff, you said it. Deputy gangs and use of force are key to public trust, constitutional policing, community safety. And I welcome your impatience. Every time you say, I'm impatient too, I'm glad that you've joined with us in the impatience. I mean, because you have to be the impatience person in chief right now, I think, in terms of all these mechanisms of government and union and processes, you know. So I just want to say that I feel a little bit lifted up today after last week's aftertaste. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm happy to hear that, Patty. It was a frustrating hearing. Anyone else? Sheriff, I know that you have to go, and I just want to say, like, I believe that you are trying to do something about deputy gangs, and I understand there are restraints on what you can talk about publicly because, as you have said, you want to continue to use the administrative process or the criminal justice system to get rid of deputy gang members. But it would be great that even if you can't share information to the public at large, if there could be some disclosure to an ad hoc committee of the COC, which doesn't have the Brown Act issues. We gave Eileen Decker a memorandum of understanding that would allow some limited information sharing about important issues to the appropriate ad hoc with a commitment to confidentiality. Anything you could do to assess that and move that process forward would be much appreciated, because we keep hearing about internal investigations of deputy gangs from yourself, and I trust your word personally. But last Friday, we heard about them from the former sheriff, and we have no way of independently evaluating those because we've never seen anything. So if there is any way to assess and agree to a memorandum of understanding for that type of information sharing, it would really help this commission meet its mission, because you cannot have meaningful oversight, civilian oversight, without the ability for those civilians to independently assess what we are being told about reform within the sheriff's department.
Heard you loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. All right, that concludes the LASD report, and we will now have ad hoc committee updates. I'm going to open it up to the commissioners to give updates or comments regarding ad hoc committee work. Irma?
Good morning. I'm going to report on the Budget Ad Hoc Committee. And just to clarify our purpose, the Ad Hoc Committee's role is to monitor LASD's budget operations, gathering information, conduct analysis, and make an ongoing recommendation for COC's consideration. If recommendations are adopted by the COC, they will be presented to the LASD and the Chief Executive Officer when appropriate. Currently, the Budget Ad Hoc Committee is getting ready to start evaluating LASD's budget for the upcoming year. Committee members include J.P. Harris, Jamal Hicks, and myself. The committee will evaluate LASD's budget, request, host an educational conference on LASD's budget, ask for public feedback about the LASD's budget, and develop a report. Are there any questions about the ad hoc committee and what we're getting ready to do? If not, that ends my report.
Patty?
The PRIA Ad Hoc Committee convened last week. Daniel Delgadillo from staff and I met with John Barkley and his team to get an update on what's been happening with PRIA. And the Office of Inspector General, and I think has been reported and, in the past, but not recently, that they were conducting, and they did conduct the audits, these compliance audits that are required from the federal PRIA law. Then they did them at the station jails, Lakewood, Marina del Rey, Lomita, and East LA Station. And so they were able to see that there has been increasing compliance with this extremely complex federal law in terms of the 35 standards that need to be met. And then the latest audit, East LA Station was found to comply with 19 out of the 35 standards. And now there is a process in furthering the compliance, correcting the non-compliance, but that requires changes to LASD policies, which are currently in the final approval. So once the policies gets changed, then the staff and the teams at the stations will be trained in the policies. The good news is that the PRIA compliance managers have been increased by 3. There were 3, and there are now 6. And that's something that our committee and the COC has recommended, gosh, maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago now. So it's taken a while, but the sheriff now has, they have increased staff to further the compliance to the federal law. And so they're the PRIA compliance managers, they're sergeants, which enables LSD to enhance their ability to promptly, thoroughly, and objectively investigate all allegations of sexual abuse and sexual harassment. So we want to, now that there's been some movement and the audits have begun and they will continue, we want to encourage the sheriff's department to maintain a focus and support of getting us in line, LA County Sheriff's Department in line with PRIA. It moves slowly. It's moving slowly in every state, but it is moving. And we were really grateful to hear about the increased staffing, which is key to making any progress. That's it.
Any questions? Are there any other commissioner updates on ad hocs that?
Sean, Rob,
Yes, Rob.
yeah, I would with respect to the ad hoc, with respect to deputy gangs, there's a, first of all, we're going to have a meeting of the ad hoc next week, but there is a sort of interim question of Sheriff Villanueva, former Sheriff Villanueva, and his further testimony. And I'm just wondering, it might make sense to empower the chair to be able to issue a subpoena, a new subpoena pursuant to advice of counsel we received from our attorney, our counsel, Harb Anand, for the sheriff, and just make sure that you're authorized to issue one. And in that regard, we could table this till next month, but these things take so much time that I'm wondering. I think I would make a motion at this point that the chair of the commission, Sean Kennedy, be authorized to issue a new subpoena for commanding the appearance and testimony of former Sheriff Alex Villanueva at a hearing of the commission to be set at sometime in March of this year. I just don't want to delay that. I just think we ought to have that get that taken care of now. But I certainly would be up to answering any questions or having a discussion of it.
Well, it sounds like you've made a motion. It's on our agenda. It's just a later item. We can take it up now. Is there any second?
I'll second the motion.
I think that means we have to take a vote, right?
Public comment.
Okay. Well, we were just about to have public comment on the whole. But we'll. I guess we'll just do it. If we're going to have a motion, we have to have the comment first. Okay. So public comment on this issue.
Sean, just to point out for the record that none of the commissioners at the last at the hearing on the 12th of January had an opportunity to ask any questions of Alex Villanueva, and so there is at least some need. I just want to make a record. There's a need for potentially a need for his further appearance and testimony. Thank you.
Yes, Rob. Well, it takes a long time to get an answer to one's question. So I think you're right. We ran out of time, even though he was on the stand for 4 hours. So let's take public comment before we vote. I don't want to keep a representative from Sybil Brand waiting. So why don't we delay the vote a few minutes while we hear from our last reporting body, and then we'll take the public comment, and then we'll do the vote. So we have Ingrid Archie from the Sybil Brand Commission, who's here to give us an update. Thank you so much. Or maybe we don't.
I'm sorry, I did not hear the question.
Ingrid, as we've asked you to be here to provide a general update from the Sybil Brand Commission about the recent inspections in the jails. So if you just have, 2 to 3 sentences about the Sybil Brand Commission's recent efforts, that would be appreciated. There's not a specific question.
Okay. I could just basically talk briefly about my experience with conducting inspections and just seeing the overall living conditions, which from my viewpoint have been subpar for humans to exist in. And just wanting to raise the visibility of that and kind of help to make changes. Not just the living conditions, but the fact that people are not receiving proper medical treatment, that there has been different reports on just different, I would say, I wouldn't say inhumane staff treatment, but kind of racial staff treatment with some of the people who are inside, um, coming from, people who are African American, saying that they're treated different than other people. Also looking into the fact that they have an education based incarceration program that has a low number of African Americans that attend it, and kind of looking into why that's happening via surveys, going into the jail, talking to people, and then, looking for solutions to figure out, how we can get more people, that are African American that are able to participate in these programs so that they can come home and have a different type of start. But those are just some of the things that I've experienced in working with the commission on.
Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions for Commissioner Archie? I don't see any questions. I really appreciate you giving us an update today.
No problem.
Thank you. All right, we've completed all our reports, including the deputy gang ad hoc report, which included a motion for authorization to issue a subpoena to the former sheriff again for testimony in March, which was seconded. And now is the time for public comment. Jennifer, the comment is both on anything we discussed in the reports as well as this motion. So do we have public comment?
Chair Kennedy, we have 3 public comments. First up is Vanessa Perez.
Vanessa, we've been waiting to hear from you. You've got the floor.
I don't have too much to say this, okay, because Sheriff Luna walked out again, so
I know.
I'm gonna say it on record now, okay. The lack of integrity I received from the Sheriff's Department is alarming. I came to him humbly and vulnerable, sharing the severe and vicious beating that my son Joseph survived in hopes that he would start some type of investigation and get these deputies off our street. Instead of terminating them and having them take any type of accountability, he has allowed these deputies, these gang members, to accept awards on behalf of ALADs, the exemplary awards, performance awards. And last month, I was kind enough to point them out, which deputies they were: Paul Sadana and Jake Adamo, and Samuel Adama, but he didn't beat my son. But anyways, the other two. So Deputy Paul Sadana, Deputy Jake Adamo, to be examples of to other deputies on the field on what a deputy should look like. Let me refresh. Deputy Jake Adamo said he began punching Joseph on his head and face with both his left and right fist, and he continued to use his personal weapons, hitting Joseph with his left and right fist, approximately 10 more times to his groin. Then began to strike Joseph's face with his right fist, then began to strike 10 more times to Joseph's head and face. Deputy Paul Sedana came in at punch 107 and deemed his punches took effect at punch 121. Now, is this what it takes to get an exemplary award, to be an example for the Sheriff's Department? Instead of accepting those awards, they should be holding a picture of my son and his face. They didn't do anything honorable, and they didn't do anything honest to receive that award. But then again, it says a lot because you guys have Samuel Adama on the front page in the same picture. So that just says a whole lot on where we stand. I want to know what we can do to start a policy or some type of change where they get red flagged on excessive force. When they are up for a promotion or they're up for an award like this, they should be red flagged, saying that they have an excessive force or a prior shooting instead of getting a promotion, because Paul Sedana was put in a high school with other kids, with my daughter. So this is unacceptable.
Thank you.
Okay, and that was for Sheriff Luna, if you can let him know that.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. Now we have MJ King. If you may please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, first I'd like to say Vanessa is an impacted family member, so that would be fantastic if you could give her the full time to speak instead of cutting her off at 2 minutes. It's beyond frustrating that the sheriff leaves before public comment. If you're going to adjust the agenda so he can speak, please include public comment right afterward and implore him to stay. He's not getting public feedback, and it's not that many community members who give comment at each meeting. I'll also be addressing the sheriff in my comments because although he's too busy, I hope that someone from his staff is listening. That designated shooter bit was freaky, Huntsman. Whew. There has been a history of drinking-related problems in LASD. Baca tried to instate a ban to carry while drinking in 2008 and 2010, but ALADS shot it down twice. No pun intended. What's going to be different this time? Is a deputy gang member shooting off another tattoo finally enough for you? Be a leader, Luna, especially since you highlight the mental health problems in your department at every COC meeting. Adding alcohol will only fuel the situation. Stand up to ALADS and update your policies to protect the public from your officers. It's the least you can do. It's frustrating when the sheriff says he supports a policy, then makes excuses. It rings hollow. You say what we want to hear at the meeting, and then you do nothing. Stand up to ALADS and update your policies to protect the public from your officers. It's the least you can do. That's it.
Thank you.
We now have Vision Supporter Mary. Please unmute yourself.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Hello, can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Maybe we can, should we try to correct that and maybe take the next speaker?
Next speaker is Yvette Correa. Yvette Correa, can you please unmute yourself?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Yvette Correa. I lost a brother in the care of the sheriffs in the LA County Jail. And it's very difficult for us, you know, to speak. The amount of information is very overwhelming. 2024 now, and basically nothing has changed other than the fact that they came out with the deputy sheriff's history and made a website where you can enter their names, even though it's not a very accurate website. But before my brother died, you know, people were scared to talk about deputy gangs, and I was not afraid. So I know it's helped for us to speak up, to get these reporters and these journalists to talk about things like this. And I just see, you know, it's not it's they treat the same the people in jail and cover up their crimes, and what I mean, it's there. Well, I guess my time's gonna run out, but there's just so much to say. The coroner's reports aren't always honest, and the deputy district attorney's reports need to be rewritten. In my brother's report, it says he could have died the same way had he been gardening, and that is not true. And why did it take 2 years to release
Thank
the
you, Ms.
video?
Correa.
Yeah, they need to.
Let's do this again. Vision Supporter Mary, can you please unmute yourself?
Yes, hi, can you guys hear me now?
We can hear you.
Okay, great, thank you.
First of all, thank you for this opportunity to speak. I really wanted to see if you guys could, I see that you guys had somebody speak earlier on the conditions of jail conditions, and I think you guys really need a full segment on this. Speaking from my experience, from someone that was recently transferred to jail from prison, what I have experienced is overwhelming. The time it takes to house an incarcerated individual when they've been transferred from prison is just ridiculous, uh, to the point where he had court on December 28th and they couldn't get him there on time from the county. So he misses court. And not only that, but he was marked as a refusal, which was not what happened. Not to mention the nutrition he's been receiving or not receiving for that matter is unacceptable. The transportation process to get someone to court and back to prison it's just unexplainable. Nobody seems to know the answers when you call and say, why was my husband not able to be transported to court when he had a date scheduled? Now we don't even know where we stand with court. There was an order for him to go back. He's still sitting in county jail, with no programming, no nothing. I mean, I don't know if you guys know what that process looks like, but it's a huge shock and transition from going to prison to county. Also, while they are being housed, it takes approximately 2 weeks for somebody to just get an interview to see where they will be housed. And in that time, I wasn't even able to hear from him. I had messages that I had to relate to him regarding the court and his new attorney, etc., which I couldn't even do because there is no contact. So I really believe that this is something that you guys should consider looking into because it is unacceptable. And you won't know that until you experience,
Thank you very
what I've
much.
experienced. But thank you for your time.
Chair Kennedy, this
Thank you.
concludes our public comment.
Okay, we're going to take a vote.
Chair Kennedy,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hicks,
Yes.
Commissioner Bonner, Commissioner Bonner, Commissioner Bonner, you want to unmute yourself and provide your vote? Moving forward, Commissioner Higgins Cooper,
Yes.
Commissioner Giggins,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Chair Kennedy, the motion carries.
Thank you. So the next item is an update on the LASD jails and the jail conditions. The last speaker just, we didn't request a vote from Commissioner Garcia, did we?
I apologize. No, we did not, but Commissioner.
Thank you, Irma.
Commissioner Garcia.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Chair
Louis.
Kennedy, the motion still carries.
I'm so sorry. As our last public speaker said, it would be great to hear more information about the condition in the jails. And to that end, we actually are going to have a presentation led by Tracy Johnson about that issue. So is Tracy, Tracy, you're here. You can give us an update, and I understand you have other people here who can field questions. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Good morning. My name is Tracy Jordan, formerly Tracy Jordan Johnson.
Oh, I'm dating myself. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Sometimes it takes a little time to get rid of that name.
So I'm really sorry, Tracy.
All right, so let me start over. Good morning, honorable commissioners and attendees. I'd like to welcome everyone this morning. We are going to provide an update on conditions of confinement, which the commission strives to increase transparency and accountability to ensure the quality of public safety services related to this area and many other areas related to oversight of the Sheriff's Department. This morning, we will briefly discuss the Commission's February 16th, 2023 report related to conditions of confinement and provide a report back. As it pertains to introduction, background, we're going to touch on a number of those areas. I have the next slide now.
Never see the slides.
Initially, this commission has been concerned with conditions of confinement related to Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department's jail facilities dating back to the inception of this commission, when the commission had its very first meeting back on January 26, 2017. The commission heard from the Citizens Commission on Jail Violence, their general counsel. At that time, they spoke to the commission's report and referred to where the Board of Supervisors should create an independent inspector general to provide oversight and monitoring of the Sheriff's Department, as well as that the Sheriff's Department should report back on use of force and custody. Next slide, please. As it pertains to the Sheriff's Department, everyone may be familiar with the fact that the department is responsible for the overall operation of the county jail system. We must also remember that there are a number of individuals that are in those facilities that may have various conditions, some of which may even have disabilities. And the Sheriff's Department must comply with Americans with Disabilities Act as it pertains to those individuals. There may also be individuals with varying backgrounds and needs that they are also responsible for complying with. Next slide, please. As it pertains to the research that we looked at, there were a number of things that we touched on in that report. Overcrowding, we looked at COVID-19 impacts. As it pertained to the overcrowding area, we looked at data related to the daily average populations that exceeded the state of California Board of State and Community Corrections total rated capacity for LASD facilities. We also looked at the fact that as it pertains to in-custody deaths, the number of deaths from 2016 to 2022 continue to increase. So these are some of the things that were touched on in that report, as well as we heard back from the public when that report was presented to the commission. Next slide, please. After the review of that information and going over the data, there was an assessment and an analysis. Overall, it was determined that LASD did attempt to make some changes related to the overcrowding conditions in the facilities. However, there were still more to be done. There was also an attempt to ensure that there were some services for women in the facilities. However, there is still a need to address post-release services for women. There is also a continuing increase in the in-custody deaths. We continue to see the rise in that. This body also, if I can have the next slide, looked at recommendations that they adopted. One of the recommendations that this body adopted was that LASD was to collaborate with correctional health services in the development of a written quarterly report back to this body on the conditions of confinement in the county jail system. Another recommendation was that LASD was to publish on its website in custody deaths in accordance with Assembly Bill 2761, as agreed upon in collaboration with Correctional Health Services. Lastly, this body also adopted and agreed that LASD should publish on its website an annual homicide investigations report. Next slide, please. In accordance with the adopted commission report, LASD recently posted on its website and provided this commission with a copy of its LASD Conditions of Confinement 2023 Quarter 3 report. And at this time, I will highlight a few things that are within that report. First, we'll start off with the jail population, and that report reflects that LASD has made some efforts to manage the population. Some of those efforts include leaving the misdemeanor bail admitted at $50,000, also keeping the percentage of release at 10% of the court-ordered sentence. LASD has also stated that they continue to work with state hospitals to reduce the incarcerated population. Next slide, please. In this report, they also note the number of grievances that LASD continues to receive. This report breaks down the grievances by facility, the number of grievances that they receive. Part of what they note is, as far as trying to manage the grievances, the department has created a new grievance system called the Custody Inmate Grievance Application, which was created back in June of 2023. They note that this system is developed to streamline facilities and units' ability to track, manage, and complete grievances. This particular report noted that the grievances and issues that they received from inmates during jail town halls continue to see the number one complaint grievance-wise as facility conditions and sanitations. The second top grievance referenced by inmates was telephones. Next slide, please. As it pertains to incarcerated people who are pregnant, the efforts by the department referenced in the report is that they continue to try to connect inmates with the Office of Diversion and Rehabilitation for post-release services. Next slide, please. There is reference to in-custody deaths in this report. One of the things that we note in this report is the deaths refer to a period of January through early October 2023 in this report. So it is a listing of deaths that take place during that time frame. It is important to note that of the 37 deaths reflected in this report, 14 of them are referenced to involve individuals from Men's Central Jail. Of the 14 individuals, 4 of those are referenced as accident by means of drugs. 22 of the 37 deaths also involved individuals whose custodial status was pre-sentence. 2 of those 37 also were determined to be homicide. Next slide, please. Now, separate from this body's efforts, it is important to note that on December 19th, 2023, the Board of Supervisors adopted a motion on addressing in-custody overdose deaths in Los Angeles County jails. This motion furthers the Commission's efforts to ensure LASD accountability by requiring LASD to collect and track data related to narcotics recovery in the jails and provide information to the Office of Inspector General. In addition, OIG, in collaboration with LASD, Correctional Health Services, and as needed, the medical examiner will provide updates to this body, the Commission. Next slide, please. At this point, we also have with us subject matter experts. From LASD, we have Hugo Macias, Commander, Custody Services Division. We have from OIG, Catherine Wright, Assistant Inspector General, Megan Brownlee, Monitor, and we also have virtually with us from Correctional Health Services, Dr. Sean Henderson, who are available to this body if you have any questions related to this matter. I would like to thank you for your time and turn it back over to our Chair, Kennedy, for your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Commissioners, do you have any questions? JP?
Thank you. I'm hoping this is a typo because the slide showed from 7/23 to 9/23. That's 2 months that we had 37 in custody deaths.
No, sir, that's an ongoing tally for the calendar year.
Thank you. Because I couldn't believe that was right. But ongoing, so what, that's for 1 year?
Yes, sir. I mean, every year they've averaged anywhere in the 40s or 50s. We did see a slight decline from last year, but they hover. I don't know if Dr. Henderson has the actual number with him. I don't have that information in front of me.
Okay, thank you.
Irma, did you have a question?
I was looking at, you had 22 deaths out of the 37 that was for pre-sentence that, and clarified, those people are in jail, haven't been sentenced. Were they related to they just couldn't afford bail? And what relationship was that with trying to minimize people in jail because of that, whether or not they could pay bail or not? Because that seemed very high to me, 22 people dying who have not been convicted of anything.
Correct, ma'am. That would be the pretrial individuals in our custody. Every case is independent of itself. It could be that the crime is of a level that the juris magistrate remand them to our custody, and therefore maybe a bail is not an option. It's a variety of things. Approximately 50% of our population is pretrial, and so I would assume that individual fell under that category.
Okay. All right. And then my other question is, are you doing anything to track how drugs are getting into your jail? Because I know the people that are sitting in jail cannot get drugs. So how are you sort of trending how these drugs are getting into your facilities?
Thank you, Commissioner. That's a great question, and it's a constant struggle, no different than the public sector. We have multiple mitigation efforts, and in 2022, the Board of Supervisors set up a board motion with OIG and others from the county and the CO's office, assisted in identifying key elements to help us mitigate any narcotics coming into our system. From that effort, we gained an additional 5 narcotic canines, as well as handlers and some investigators, to increase and augment our existing efforts when it comes from law enforcement initiatives. We also have body scanners. We also have detections, and we have intel inside our jails that we generate leads to try to mitigate. But we would love to leverage and get modern technology to help us eliminate the constant inflow of narcotics. It's no secret that narcotics in our systems are 10 times what they're worth out in the public sector. And so it's lucrative, unfortunately, and individuals will find means to come in. We have individuals that unfortunately intentionally ingest or insert in body cavities when they come into our jails. We have individuals that are very creative, and it could come in our mails, and it could be soaked or laced in underneath a mail, and the adhesive and the stamp. There's various ways. It's not uncommon, unfortunately, for narcotics to be disposed of in the local areas where our inmate population has access to. It's pre-coordinated with the public, and it makes its way inside our system. So what we're hoping for is for modern technology that's less invasive, that doesn't require body searches. We're no different than you and I going to the airport, going through TSA, and it's a scanning system, and therefore it's respectful way of conducting business, but at the same time identifying any substance that should not make its way into our system.
My final question is, how much money in terms of funding are you getting for the disabled inmates? Because during one of my visits to the jail, I noticed an inmate that did not have legs. He was in a wheelchair, and the wheelchair was in horrible condition.
So that's not necessarily been an issue for us. That could be an isolated incident. I'd be more than happy to look into it. But yeah, so we have a settlement agreement through the Johnson, which has to do with disability, and it's we are one of our most compliant settlement agreements that we have to this date. We have designated housing, particular for that. So there's a consolidated of resources treating them in those areas. We also have ongoing purchases for any apparatuses they may need. So we work with CHS, our Correctional Health Services, who advises of disability needs, and then we coordinate together to give them the services they need, whether it be treatment and or services where it's such as a wheelchair.
Hopefully my next visit will not, you know, I will not see wheelchairs in that type of repair, and hopefully.
I would hope so too, ma'am, but we can definitely address that.
Okay, thank you.
Luis?
I had a question on regarding these town hall meetings.
Yes, sir.
Is there any way that these tables can reflect, or maybe like a note of where they're occurring, you know, in the jail?
We can look into that, sir. That's another thing, and I think the sheriff previously alluded to. We've been submitting for, and we've been working with the CEO's office, the Chief Information Officer, to create a network system that's conducive for better data tracking. You can set data points to track just that. Everything right now is manually tracked, and so we have logs of where these occur, but for this report, we're putting them in general numbers, how many are conducted monthly, because that was the original request from this body. Does not mean we can't expand the reporting, so we can definitely take that back to our office to see how conducive that is. But just to answer your point originally, moving forward, once we have this data system that is going to be the infrastructure to create data systems and a jail management system, you'll be able to put endpoints, so whenever the town hall meeting is being taken in a particular area in the jail, that'll be self-populated and therefore be able to generate reports at a later time.
Okay. And that kind of leads to my second question on the top 10 issues. Like looking at in July and August, September, kind of focusing on inmate programs, exercise, recreation. It'd be nice if this conditions of confinement report would also have like number of inmates in accessing like rehabilitation programs. You know, the number, whatever, whether it's like academic EBI programs or I don't know if they call them enrichment programs or just, you know, just
I
overall.
echo your same sentiment, sir. Obviously, we're in a data-driven world, and the more information we have, we can show proof of practice for all the services and give credit or identify the programs that are efficient and programs that are not as efficient, and then you have better return on your investment. A lot of the stuff, we have different services being provided by volunteers, EBI, as you alluded to, we have correctional health services, and so we have even mental health services providing various services. So we try to consolidate the information, but there's different disciplinary departments providing the services. So we can, and I can also reach out to our internal services that we provide and see if there's a place where we can reflect that on the report.
Thank you.
Come on.
I believe that the numbers were 2 out of 37 in custody deaths were homicide. Is that inmate versus inmate or?
That is correct, sir.
Thank you.
Hans?
I just want to pick up on what Commissioner Garcia asked about involving access to programs. We just heard public comment about how lacking in awareness of available programs many incarcerated people are. And I want to ask, what efforts are made system-wide to inform, including in hard copy, of incarcerated people to available programs, and what improvements have been made in efforts to improve awareness or to publicize those programs that are available in the jails?
That's a great question, Commissioner. So to your point, we continue to market as much as we can. We've also, and I'll defer to OIG if they can share from their perspective. We've listened to the comments. So there's video announcements that go on that are posted. There's posters on the wall. I know for a fact in there are female areas. We've had campaigns where those females remanded to our custody do poster boards to reach different various folks. We also have a Inmate Services Bureau department within our department that is specific to programming, and so they encourage. We want nothing but to promote it and get more engagement. It is a volunteer program. We can't force folks to come on board. We also have contracts with charter schools that come and provide general services as well as volunteers. And volunteers themselves also try to vocalize and promote their own program as well.
And just in the interest of cutting through some of the happy talk, I want to ask about this grievance process that it has a nice acronym that was apparently implemented in June. But having been in jails, it's not a realistic or accessible grievance program. The suggestion or grievance boxes are taped over in many cases. Again, no access to hard copy forms in some places. And there's a discrepancy between what we heard in public comment today about lack of access to healthcare being a primary driver of grievances, and yet the report back says, yes, that it's about sanitation and access to telephones. What efforts are made to actually put grievance materials in access for incarcerated people and to make sure, as we saw up in the Pitches Center, lack of access to even on-site healthcare for people who were requesting it. That's grievable. That certainly needs to be documented. What efforts are being made to address that or to compile those grievances that relate to lack of access to healthcare?
Sir, I'll address the grievance side. I believe Dr. Henderson is online, so you can address the medical side. I will defer to him. In regards to the tracking mechanism, we echoed your sentiment as far as the frustration that it's antiquated. The system that replaced the previous, which was CARTS, it's a custodial tracking system. It was developed in 2010. It was a Microsoft system application that, as we all know, we don't have software from 2010 that is not conducive to advanced tracking and data points. So it was an in-house built design. It's a web-based design that is coinciding now with some of our provision measures. So I'll give you an example. 8.3 of the ROSAs is any allegation of retaliation by staff. That is going to be earmarked and self-populated, and it's also going to coincide with quarterly reports or any reports that we are mandated to report to the existing monitors. So it's going to not only show better accountability, better tracking. Our old system was facility specific. This now is going to be ID specific. So if the individual moves to another area of the county in a different jail, we can coincide all the reports where before they had to be manually driven. The other one where I echo your frustration in regards to grievances, and I'm hoping we can reach 2024 technology with a tablet solution where we get away from paper trails. We don't have to worry about having mailbox depositories for these, where it can get a tracking number right there and then, and it goes directly to the end user. It doesn't have to be a law enforcement officer picking up that grievance, handing it over to medical, and hopeful that they can connect and schedule an appointment.
I just want to be clear. I'm not expressing hostility towards hard copy because sometimes that is more accessible and valuable. But you're right. It doesn't create a sense of faith or transparency or measurability.
Or accountability.
Or accountability if there's no tracking on it. So I just want to ask, are those mechanisms modern in this new system? Are you giving some form of tracking or accountability to the end user or to family members who might file that grievance on behalf of a loved one incarcerated?
So absolutely, the design came on and it went live in July. We had redundancy, so the old system cards ran through the end of July, and at that point, Microsoft was no longer supporting it, nor were our data systems supporting it. So it created an urgency for us to even build something new. Not only did we build it to have better accountability and better tracking, but it's going to be compatible to new technology. We're thinking ahead. We see the systems coming on board, and so it's going to be able to speak to existing systems and therefore hopefully have better generating capabilities.
Just to hear the interest from at least this commissioner in follow-up reports on this issue, because I think efforts to modernize that system and to track it are ones that I would certainly like to hear more of in the future and to be part of in a very concrete way in the quarterly updates that we receive about the conditions of confinement.
I encourage your support, sir, because I'm sure you understand technology is more efficient than personnel. It's a better use of resources. Not only that, but you take away the human error, which exists.
Or human bottlenecks.
Correct. Correct.
Anyone else?
One more.
Irma?
About in the record about the diseases. I understand when facility gets crowded, you can have more diseases, and you do an excellent job of listing these diseases.
The people,
sorry.
we're broadcasting out there, so.
I'm sorry. I'm looking at the community disease chart, and you did a great job of listing these diseases. But my concern is, I understand when you have overcrowding, that these numbers can go up. I do understand that the inmates have a right to refuse treatment, but I'm wondering how much pre-education and prevention education do you provide, and how much actual treatment is provided?
So thank you for that credit, but I'm going to have to defer that support to Dr. Henderson. Our staff generates the reports, but that information is provided by Dr. Henderson and the staff.
Okay, I'll wait for Dr. Henderson to give his report.
We have ongoing education that's made available to individuals at risk for certain communicable diseases. And when identified, of course, they're treated. So is there a specific question with regard to a specific disease?
No, I just want an initial amount of how much treatment was given and whether or not you do preventive education to those.
Okay, so I'd have to look at the numbers and get back to you in terms of what was actually treated, because I thought they were also presented there, but the education materials handed out on arrival and on identification of disease in the clinics by the public health nurses, by the infectious disease team. So there's a lot of education. And if a disease is identified, we would treat it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, can I just ask our friends from the Office of the Inspector General, is there, are there any efforts we hear so much about young people dying in the jails and the fentanyl overdoses. Are there any efforts to determine whether the source of the drugs in the jail are the deputies or employees of the jail? Because that to me sounds like the most likely, well, not most likely, but it certainly sounds like that should be an option. I mean, that sounds like a source that is a real possibility, if not a likely possibility.
That is definitely a likely possibility. Part of the motion does ask the department to strengthen their existing policies on increasing and conducting more comprehensive searches of belongings of staff and civilians who enter the facility. Commissioners, you've entered the facility and you see the security at the airport is much stricter than the security going into the jail for staff and civilians, volunteers. So this motion definitely addresses that. And we look forward to seeing what the department can do to strengthen those policies and protocols. I believe Mr. Macias wanted to comment as well.
It's a great point, Commissioner. Of course, not only that, they asked me for the general side. We recognize you can have volunteers, you can have county employees, and anyone who does deliveries. So it's a real concern.
And the deputies,
and
right?
Everyone, they're county employees. Anyone having access into our jails encompassing of all those folks. So we echo their concerns, and we will love support. I alluded to it earlier, a TSA scanning system where your property and your person has to go through that, no different than anyone else. Because I figured the cost of technology implemented into our jails is a lot less costly than any death that happens inside of our system, and then we have to go through the litigation.
Okay, so right now, do the deputies or the civilian employees, do they go through, like I go to that jail all the time and I have to go through the security to visit clients and stuff. Is that done for the employees?
We don't have the infrastructure. We would support the infrastructure and implementation of such structure in our jails. What we do have is the policies requiring clear bags to have an easier way to track what's coming into our systems, but it could be concealed anywhere. We also utilize our canines sporadically, not only to test and look at the areas inside the facilities, dorm facilities, jail facilities, station jails, as well as employees coming in and out. But we have a group of 10 dogs that are dedicated to do all these various services and locations.
Okay,
including the deputies.
okay. Patty?
Yeah, I'm looking at the number of incarcerated people who are pregnant. And I think it was mid-COVID where there was a lot of reporting and concern about fresh water and appropriate nutrition and healthcare to those who are incarcerated and pregnant. Is there any way to get a little bit of a follow-up that? I think it's a couple of years now since we've heard on how, have there been improvements for those folks?
So I'll handle the custodial part, and Dr. Henderson can talk about any of the prenatal care that they receive. In regards to the water treatment, we continuously work with our Facility Services Bureau with the Linwood Water District, who are the main providers of water coming into the facility. We also heard and understood some questions regarding odor or particles that were found. And so our Facility Service Bureau, which is a department within the Sheriff's Department, incorporated water filtration systems at all the dispensary areas, similar to what you or I would have in a refrigerator. And they continue to get what they consider a confidence consumer report from the Linwood Water District system. And so we continue to ensure that the reports coincide with what's acceptable by the EPA, which is established by the federal government as well as California. In addition to, the female population receives bottled water. They have options to bottled water as well. And during emergencies, we also have a surplus for that. Any additional services, I would defer to Dr. Henderson as far as the medical care, unless OIG wanted to say something.
I can speak a little bit about what we hear from the pregnant people in custody at CRDF. We do get good feedback regarding the bottled water that's provided to the pregnant people at CRDF. They do get at least 6 bottles of water per day, and there is more in the housing unit if they ask for it. We are told that they are being provided with bottled water. They also report to us that their nutritional needs are being met, that the menu is being followed. The area that the department seems to be struggling with a little bit is the large muscle exercise for the pregnant people in custody, particularly people that are housed in mental health housing. And so we have been working with the facility to monitor that very closely. And I was told recently, and I believe we'll be commenting on this in our report card report, that they have assigned a sergeant to monitor the pregnant people in custody at CRDF to ensure compliance with the large muscle exercise and other requirements for that population.
Is it possible to also, I'm kind of curious of what happens to those newborn babies, like immediately, because they're in custody, they're in the hospital, or do you track, or is any tracking of do some of those inmates get released? Maybe their time is up, or what happens to the babies? Because we see, a number of births every month, 25, around 25, 20 to 25. No, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one, but, a number of births. There were 6 births between July and September. Is there a tracking, or is there any way to know what kind of follow-up care?
Absolutely, and Dr. Henderson could discuss the aftercare
Yeah.
and what have you. What I could say is that we always work with our justice partners, and we've had family members be in the room when the child is being delivered, and if the opportunity presents itself there, the child with the mother's concurrence is then delivered to a family member. In regards to whether or not they could be released, we constantly work with our partners at CHS to create a list of what we consider vulnerables or those who may qualify for early release. That list is consistently shared with their justice partners at their courthouse for consideration. So if there's an opportunity, we absolutely make that happen.
Is DCFS involved automatically?
If there's no next in kin, yeah, absolutely. Anything where there's not a legal responsible individual to take care of the child,
Isn't it DCFS who decides who's legally responsible?
Correct, but they would come in. But if I'm the female and my mother's there with me and they can show ID, then by all means, it would be given to the mother.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, it's, we started promptly at 9, it's 11:12. So we're going to take a 15-minute break and then start up with public comment on this agenda item.
And we are almost finished with break now. If everyone could begin heading back to your seats, it has been about 20 minutes, so thank you.
Yeah, okay, we got.
I did not.
Yes.
It's like another Mary.
Well, that's fair.
Report.
Thank you. You roll. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
My dissertation.
And you know,
One of my recommendations. Dissertation on the GLs.
So what are you up to, my friend?
We're just gonna wait a minute. A couple of people are using the restroom. People are.
You know, if there's.
We're just waiting. He will be right here, right here. We're going to resume this meeting, and we ended with the end of the report on the situation with the jails, and it's time for public comment.
Chair Kennedy, we have one in-person public comment and one online. We're going to start off with Michelle Infante.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Michelle Infante. I'm with Dignity and Power Now, and this is directed at you, sir. You come up here with some of your flowery talk about handing over babies to someone's mother after they've given birth. You talked about the things that you do, these great things. You talked about water. You talked about water, but didn't tell people how many bottles of water that you give pregnant women or the women inside. The water is brown, sir. I've been in there. I know. And I outreach on a monthly basis and on a weekly basis, and I collect data regarding what's going on inside. The confinements inside are terrible. You want to talk about something that's really awful, something that you didn't talk about up here? Let's talk about miscarriages, sir. Every month when I go to the women's facility, there's always someone who has sat next to, like myself when I was in jail, who sat next to somebody for 3 hours while they miscarried and the baby was in their pants. What data did you bring to discuss that? You didn't bring anything. Everything that commissioners have asked you questions about, you didn't even have the answers for it, so I don't even know why you're here. Dr. Henderson is the one that you keep referring to. Well, maybe you could go back and find some data on that, because the data that you put in the paper that you guys do reflects upon what your interpretation is that you want the public to know. You don't want the public to know everything, because you don't come up here and you don't talk about everything. You don't talk about dirty little subjects like miscarriages, do you? Maybe the next time you come up here, you might be real. You might be authentic and come up here with extensive information regarding what's going on down at the Linwood facility, because the exhaust that comes through the windows, I'm sure, contributes to miscarriages. The elements on the outside, the hexavalent chromium 6 that's emitted off of the chemical plants, I'm sure that that stuff has something to do with miscarriages. So the next time you come up here, I would hope that you would be a little
Thank
more
you, Michelle.
and you would bring more information regarding what's really going on inside the women's
Thank
facility.
you. Next up, we have MJ King. If you may unmute yourself. We can hear you.
Okay, 2023 in custody deaths, 42 deaths in 48 weeks. For reference, in 2016, there were 19 in custody deaths. 19. How did we allow this steady increase in deaths happen where no one is flinching at 42 deaths? 42 deaths in 48 weeks is unacceptable. The majority of these folks were pretrial and awaiting resolution of their case. That is inhumane. According to LASD's reporting, the majority of folks listed as dying at LAGMC are due to sepsis. The medical care that folks inside are receiving is so bad that their health issues are not being addressed. That's preventable. Look at all the deaths that occurred at MCJ on the 2,000 and 3,000 floors. The floors run by deputy gangs. And according to the special counsel report, we know there are other floors run by deputy gangs. How are your investigations of deputy gangs intersecting with jail deaths? Why does someone whose manner of death listed as suicide have their means of death listed as multiple blunt force injuries? That doesn't add up. What 31-year-old dies of natural causes? What natural causes does a 32-year-old die of? What about a 46-year-old? Even 50 and 60-year-olds don't die of natural causes. Where's the oversight on the autopsies? Deputies are present at the coroner's office during autopsies while families are not permitted. Seems like a huge conflict of interest. Where's the oversight of the coroner's office on the categorization of these deaths? Finally, stop the lies about how drugs are making it inside. Deputies do not go through the body scanners. The deputies are bringing it in. 2023 in custody deaths are unfathomable. This year, already 3 deaths in the first 2 weeks. Looks like nothing has changed. This is an emergency. The Board of Supervisors has done jack shit about this. I urge this commission to use your power to urge the board to act now. On the pregnancy conversation, pregnancy people should not be incarcerated, period. There are so many other options. It's weird to hear you talk about pregnant people needing bottled water without acknowledging that otherwise their drinking water comes out of the back of their
Thank you, Ms.
toilet.
King. Your time has
No one should have to drink out of
concluded.
that dirty little sink. Did the report mention whether these folks were pregnant before they
Thank you,
came to
Ms.
these
King. Your
facilities?
time has
With
concluded.
well-documented reports of abuse, especially at CRDA.
She's done.
That concludes our public comment, Ms. Chair
Okay.
Kennedy.
I don't know who was speaking just then.
MJ King. Okay, so I think we're near the end of our, because we already we already issued the subpoena and had we already had the vote in for the subpoena. So we now have some pending requests to the LASD that maybe people have information on, I'm hoping. So JP, I think you initiated this first request to see if the new hires to the department are specifically informed that they cannot join deputy gangs. And you use a term like condition of employment or something?
Term and condition of employment.
A term and condition of employment. We wanted to know if that's happening. To our staff, did we get an answer or no? Does someone from the department, because we've had this on we've been talking about this for the past couple of meetings. Does someone know whether new hires are informed that they can't join a deputy gang and that this is a term and condition of their employment?
Yes, that is something that we're working out with the policy the sheriff spoke about earlier. Once that policy is implemented, obviously we'll be able to enforce it. Deputies are always encouraged not to be part of any subversive groups. And it is part of the questioning process as well as the indoctrination phase into the organization where gangs and subcultures are brought up as topics of conversation in patrol school. Once they graduate the academy, once they, are in their units of assignment, it's a continuing conversation that we're having with our folks about the ills of subversive groups on the department.
Okay, JP, do you want to follow up? Because I think you had like a specific.
Yes. Thank you, Assistant Sheriff Johnson. Yeah, I'm specifically concerned about when the applicant signs their papers, it says they're accepting a position as a deputy sheriff in Los Angeles County, that part of that process is included a term and condition of employment that they shall not participate in any clique or gang or whatever terminology the county council and the sheriff's department comes up with. This does not have anything to do with ongoing training, which needs to occur. This is prior to them going to the academy, they have agreed to this as a term and condition of employment.
I'm sorry, now I understand your question or concern. And the answer is, I don't believe there is a form that specifically states that. However, again, it is a continuing conversation we're having, making sure that our folks understand that that is not an acceptable line of behavior for our employees, and it's continuously reinforced as they transfer and go up through the organization.
Right. Yeah, I'm not an employment law attorney. I'm not an attorney at all. So I don't know what the intricacies are of making such a thing happen. But I'm of a belief, and I could be proven wrong, that you could make it a term and condition of employment. It's not negotiable. You either accept it or you don't become a deputy sheriff.
Well, that's
But
certainly
I hope that
something.
would be at least explored, particularly now when we're in I know the department's in a huge hiring mode, and I know you're trying to, hire as many people as you can. This would be a really good time to have something like that in the paperwork so you could nip this problem in the bud. So that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's certainly something we can take a look at. I'll take that back to the organization and we'll see where we stand with that issue.
Thank you.
Sean, this is Rob Bonner. I want to be heard on this just briefly. And that is to say, I want to make it very clear to everybody, including the Sheriff's Department representative, that a new employee, if somebody who's applying to be a deputy sheriff, they're not subject to the collective bargaining agreement. There's no meet and confer that needs to take place with ALADs on this issue. You can just do it. I realize that some of these other issues the sheriff is saying are balled up in the meet and confer process. Seems to take forever, but this one isn't. This is not subject to meet and confer. Just do it. Make it a condition that you cannot join a deputy clique as we've defined it in our proposed policy, or a deputy gang, and as a term of employment. And yeah, it won't be over then, but at least if everybody that's new hire is brought on, eventually everyone will be subject to that term and condition. It just should be done. It also sends a message out. It's time that a message go out. So I would urge, I want you to go back to Sheriff Luna and repeat and tell them what the commissioners have said here, Commissioner Harris and me, on this subject, because I don't understand it. This can be done now. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely, sir, and thank you. That, like I indicated, that's something that we're going to take back and move upon.
Well, Assistant Sheriff, you can hear there's a lot of passion on this issue. I think that you have a tattoo form that the new people disclose the tattoos and explain it, and that's not a problem. So maybe this could also be part of that. But it comes up a lot, and so it would be appreciated if you all, considered that. There's another pending request that we have, and I know that this was made to the Office of Inspector General for this information, and I believe we also made it to the Sheriff's Department. We have heard there's a manual, training manual for report writing for deputies, and of course it comes up so much. If that manual exists, we were wondering if we could see it, and if it doesn't, we were wondering if we could get a definitive answer. No, there's not a report writing training manual, and it comes up a lot because people don't understand like why things aren't in their reports. I'm a practicing lawyer. I get reports from the department, and they don't contain like a major piece of information that maybe possibly exonerates the suspect or the defendant in court. And I don't know, Max, maybe you or your folks have an answer. We talked about this a while ago.
I do not have an answer. I gave you the best answer I had, and I have no additional one. I don't think there is such a thing. I think there are some things that I sent you, but I could be wrong about that. But I do want to, if I could go back to the previous point about the having people sign a document. In December of last year, LASD showed us such a document as you describe, requiring people to say that they won't join cliques or be members of gangs. And they told us that they would provide it to you. I don't know if they did or did not. I saw such a document. I have no idea if it's actually being used. I suspect it isn't, in much the way we've in the past been shown documents that didn't turn out to be actually implemented. But I just wanted you to be aware, it isn't just oh, gee, we talked about it. They've actually prepared something, and my guess would be it's in exactly the point that Judge Bonner made, that it's being met and conferred about. But they did show it to us, and they told us they would show it to you. So if they haven't, we will follow up on that.
Can you describe?
Yeah, it's like a 1 or 2 page sort of typical, you sign it when you have to sign an acknowledgement thing, and it talks about laws and whatnot, and it says Sheriff Luna's name at the bottom, and the person has to check some boxes and sign that they acknowledge. And one of the things they acknowledge, the main thing of it is I cannot join a clique or subgroup or a deputy gang in much the way that you recommended.
Can I ask our staff, have we seen that?
I think the answer is no.
Can you send that to me?
I will check and make sure that I can. The Sheriff's Department, It's their document and they told me they would provide it. I have to make sure that they really meant what they said, that something weird didn't happen, but if, assuming it can, I'll get them to provide it to you.
Max, that sounds like progress. I would think they want to show us that one.
Well, you and I and the sheriff have different definitions of progress. As he pointed out, there are some people who say we don't have much progress on gangs, and he wanted credit for a bunch of things that are happening. I see those small steps as shuffles back and forth. And I see movement backwards from the McDonnell administration. At the same time, there's some movement forward. So when a document is prepared that looks nice and pretty, I'll give you an example. Back under the McDonnell administration, we brought to their attention a policy they have that requires cooperation in criminal investigations by deputies. The only way they can't cooperate is if it would violate their Fifth Amendment rights. So that means if they have no Fifth Amendment concern, they have to talk. And if they have one, but they're compelled, and so therefore it can't be used against them, they have to talk. And so under McDonnell, they wrote a policy, they presented it to us, we publicly reported on this with a signature and everything, said this is our new policy, we're going to follow that. We're going to actually compel statements. Recently, I tried to go to ICIB and inquire about the use of that policy. First, they wouldn't let me in, they wouldn't provide me documents in violation of law under this administration. And when they did, they said that's not our policy. There was never any meet and confer about that, even though it was provided to us, posted on the internet as being genuine, based on LASD's representation. Now they claim it was totally fake. So the fact that there is a document that says the pretty words that you want to hear, but isn't implemented, I don't call that progress.
Yeah. The theme of today seems to be meet and confer as Hans has mentioned, as a dilatory tactic to avoid complying with state law or passing reforms. Well, I appreciate that, Max. We'll make that request direct.
Just going to confirm that because of the report by LSD, we're getting confirmed.
Okay. And then, well, I'll just bring up, I'll just send a follow-up email regarding the training manual because so many people ask me about it. It's referred to. Do you know,
There's
Assistant
block
Sheriff?
instruction in the academy and in patrol school that covers report writing. As far as a manual, I'm not sure there is one. I can check on that and get back with you, but there is a block in the academy that's taught relative to patrol, report writing. And that is, again, reiterated when the deputies go to patrol.
Okay.
During patrol school.
Okay. And then our last agenda item about pending requests. And that we asked for information on water quality and access to water issues in the jails. We got some information today. Does this come from a particular commissioner?
Yes,
Hans, you want to follow up to make sure you get the information you're looking for?
I would like to, especially in light of the conversation we've had today about conditions of confinement and the subjects of grievances from incarcerated people in LA County jails. I have not received any update about this, and I would like to. And it is a subject that I think appears indirectly in the sheriff's report regarding illnesses and even causes of death. One of the public comments raised the danger of sepsis. We have communicable diseases being highlighted in the sheriff's report. Water quality, which I think a number of us have witnessed as a recurring problem in jails during our own visits, and which came up even during the abbreviated report from the Civil Brand Commissioner we heard from today, is something that we need to pay recurring attention to. It is unacceptable for inmates to be drinking out of 5-gallon pails from Home Depot in a detention facility. And that's what we witnessed at the Pitchess Center in July. And I think it's worth noting that there was a spike in disease reports in that very facility during the month of July. So I would like to have an update about this problem, how it's being addressed system-wide, in addition to at the Pitchess facilities. And I hope that we can get that at our February meeting, if not before.
I'll defer to Commander Macias on that issue.
Okay.
Thank you. We'll hold you to that.
Much appreciated for the engagement on these issues. It's really appreciated. I think that concludes our agenda, but we have our final public comments and we have plenty of time. So
Sean, before we do that, I do just want to call out something that's in the packets for people here because it does involve the first district. The Justice Resource Fair coming up on Sunday, the 28th. Is really a noteworthy compilation of community and public resources. It has a voter registration component to it also, as we are on the advent of the primary election on March 5th. But please do take a look at this. If you can, find private and public ways to publicize this January 28th event to help make it a success. And thanks for all those who are participating and those who are doing the COVID vaccinations and other preventive health measures at the resource fair.
thank you, Hans. How many?
Chair Kennedy, we have 6 public comments in person and none online so far.
Okay.
First up is Raquel Darfler, followed by Asik Asbury, then Ron Dahl.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
I'm Raquel Derfler with Cancel the Contract. I'm going to be speaking this afternoon on behalf of Niani Finlayson, a Lancaster mother who was murdered on December 4th by Deputy Ty Shelton in front of her 9-year-old daughter. So the narrative out there is that since Niani had a knife, it was a, quote, good shooting, case closed. What the public doesn't know is that Niani had that knife to protect herself and her daughter from a gentleman who was being abusive and would not leave her apartment. That Niani had that knife at the time she called 911, and that for the 16 minutes that it took deputies to arrive, she never used that knife on that gentleman. That the deputies never announced who they were as they tried to kick down her door. That Niani opened the door to let them in. That Ty Shelton never instructed Niani to drop the knife before he unloaded 4 shots into her. Ty Shelton is the same deputy who also shot and killed Michael Thomas in the summer of 2020. That was also a domestic violence call. It was also in front of Mr. Thomas's family. Body cam wasn't working during that incident. After that shooting, Ty was promoted to training officer. It's rumored that he has ties to deputy gangs. And prior to killing Mr. Thomas, he was on the sheriff's 11, believed to be an internal watch list for problematic deputies. Shelton also has over 24 use of force incidents in his jacket. We are demanding that LASD release the full body cams, unedited, from all the deputies present, and that Shelton be fired before he kills again, and that LSAD complies with the 2015 Antelope Valley Settlement Agreement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Raquel. Next, we have Isaac Asbury, followed by Ron Dowell, then Bishop L.J. Gilroy.
Good afternoon. Basically, I have documentation I want to provide to the commission as in reference to Operation Safe Street unit. And if you're not familiar with it, we provided you a detailed background on Operation Safe Street. We're missing, and I want to thank the commission on having Bill Weber to testify. I got calls from New York. They were, I was so happy he was on the witness stand, okay? But when I went home and I looked on the website, they've changed the sheriff website, and it's got like 265 pages of information that doesn't apply to anything. I don't know when they did that, okay? So please look at the sheriff website. I don't want to get started. But anyway, I want to thank Ms. Decker. She helped provide us get all the names that we needed for officer-involved shootings. So today, from 23 years, we have all officer-involved shootings, right? The only ones we're missing is Operation Safe Street. That's 126 deputies. We don't have the names. Once we get the name, then we'll have a nice spreadsheet. You can hit one button and it'll tell you how many times she was in a fatal shooting, wounded somebody, excessive force, and blah, blah, blah. I'm also sending this to, so we have some extra help, because I'm not going to be waiting. Maxine Waters, Martin Estrada, Donald Alway, Civilian Oversight Commission, Robert Luna, because I knew he was going to run, because he's always busy. So I'm sending it to him certified, right? Rob Bata, and I'm requesting that the Board of Supervisors provide 4 extra cars for the incorporated area of Compton, because they only have like 1 car, 2 cars for each unincorporated area. On Thanksgiving, I'll be done. El Chapo's son was killed right there in Compton, right? And since then, we've had.
Thank you, Mr. Asbury.
5 shootings at one time, 8 shootings at another time. Have a good day. So who do I give this to?
Can I? Yeah.
You take it?
Yes. Oh, here we go. Yeah.
Everybody's gonna get a
Can I just ask, did Eileen Decker say why she didn't give operation? She gave you all the information except Operation
But
Safe
she
Street?
probably doesn't have it.
I see. Okay.
And I gave you the name, okay?
Next, we have Ron Dowell, followed by Bishop L.J. Gilori, and then Vanessa Ponce.
Neither the City of Compton nor the Sheriff's Department have delivered on repeated Public Records Act requests for a roster of sheriff personnel working in Compton under its $25 million contract. City employee names and contact information are available on the official website, but sheriff personnel identities remain inexplicably secret. Nor have we received any assurances from Compton or the sheriff that no executioner gang members, Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, or 3%er traitors are assigned or operate from the Compton Sheriff Station. Until there is transparency, the Compton community will continue to feel unsafe and will remain in fear of deputies such as convicted felons Miguel Vega and Blair Hernandez, who in 2020 falsely imprisoned a Black 23-year-old skateboarder engaged in a vehicle pursuit with the victim unlawfully detained in an LASD SUV, resulting in a traffic collision that injured the victim, and then filed false reports to cover up their unlawful conduct. Vega killed Andres Guardado 2 months later. I can't help but wonder what the official narrative would have been had the skateboarder died. We in Compton know gangs, and Vega and Hernandez's behavior is thug-like. And we can't help but wonder if similar personnel remain in Compton. Their policing model makes public interaction cringe-worthy. Their actions call attention to the fact that deputies, whether they are called gangs, cliques, subgroups, or wear tattoos, have killed people in Compton, as evidenced by litigation and huge settlements.
Thank you, Mr. Dowell. Now we have Bishop L.J. Gilori, followed by Vanessa Ponce, then Michelle Infante.
Good morning. My name is Bishop L.J. Guillory. I'm the Ombudsman General to National Ombudsman as well as Ombudsman International. I'm also the chairman of the Compton Public Safety Commission. We take off our hats to you. We have been watching what you've been doing for a number of years, and we're hoping that somehow we can have some collaborative hearings on the things that's going on in the city of Compton. We have a new council. We have a new captain. And we know that, in fact, we have one of our old captains sitting right here representing the Sheriff's Department. There are a plethora of issues. And many of the issues that we suffer in Compton, they suffer all over the state. They suffer all over the county. Compton seems to be a magnet because many of the kids who are doing the street takeovers, they want that Compton cred. They want that hashtag on their YouTube video, on their TikTok. However, the citizens are at wit's end. The number of sheriff cars that we have, the personnel being lower all over the county makes us very vulnerable. We're asking to assist us. We had former DA Steve Cooley to come to our last meeting this month to explicate on some of the things that we could do as a city, working with the sheriff's department to help resolve some of these issues. Many of you have seen the bakery that was robbed, by young kids. And since then, some of the kids have been communicating back on Facebook, and they say, "Yeah, we did it. Yeah, what's wrong with that?" So our moral compass is way over with our young people, and we look forward to working with you. God bless you, and thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Vanessa Ponce, followed by Michelle Infante.
Perez.
Oh, Perez, sorry.
My name is Vanessa Perez, the mother of Joseph Perez. I just want to quickly say, like, if we can maybe arrange something where, while the sheriff is here, where the families are able to speak to him directly, or like 2 minutes of his time for the families, because, it's, we're here to speak on our loved ones, and how are we gonna get the message across to someone that's not even here? And we're talking about his men. This is his department. He needs to be here and listen to us and give us 2 minutes of his time. Yeah, I understand he's busy. He got things to do, but we're here and we've been impacted by him. And if he could just, well, if you guys, I don't know who, but give us some time while he's here to reach out to him. We shouldn't have to chase them out there for those 2 minutes and have them hear what we have to say, or the other kind deputies that helped pass the message. But I mean, I would like him to be here.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I just want to ask our executive director, who seems to know procedures better than I do, if there's any problem. The sheriff never stays more than an hour and a half usually. Is there any problem just having public comment as to him out of order, so that he could hear the people who want to talk to him? Because I mean, you have a good point. I think we understand what you're saying.
Yes, we can revise the schedule to allow that.
Can we do that then for our next meeting? Ascertain when he's going to be here, and we'll just build public comment so that you can have your say. Because Vanessa, I can't control. I've been through 3 sheriffs at this point, and I've told every single one of them, I think the best use of their time is to be here and listen to the community, and none of them agree with me. So we'll try it this way.
Next, we have Michelle Infante. Actually, Max wants to say.
Well, wait, if I could just jump in, I'm sorry, Michelle. I just want to let you know I sent that form, and we, in the middle of December, had an interaction with the Constitutional Policing Office about that and asked them, is it being used? What's going on? And they told us that they were working on a response to you and us, and we never got it. But Eileen also tells me that form, she believes they may have sent to you, and you may have it. So either she's mistaken, it didn't actually get packaged, and she's thinking what her people are going to do someday, or maybe it's in the pipeline. But in any event, I've forwarded it to you so you can see it. I am not saying that is actually being used. I don't know that at all.
Okay.
Sorry.
I think our staff would have told us if that type of form was received.
I would think so. You never know.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Again, my name is Michelle Infante. I'm with Dignity Power Now. It's interesting that the Sheriff's Department always comes up here and talks about everything good that they're doing, but they never want to discuss the things that the community is talking about, everything that's bad. So I just want to finish speaking about conditions in confinement. And I have an example, because I didn't want people to think that I came up here and I was just throwing out information where I don't have someone. Some of you may have been here in the past when I spoke about Ruby Beltran. Ruby Beltran was actually pregnant when she went into Linwood facility. She was also in a 3rd stage cancer. And so while she was in there for approximately, I believe, 7 months, she never received any cancer treatment, and was actually the county hospital told the sheriff's department when they brought her over that she needed to have that treatment right away, and they said they didn't have time to keep her there. So for 7 months, she didn't have treatment, and when she left, she was actually in the 4th stage of cancer, not in 3rd stage anymore. So that's some of the conditions regarding medical. Now, regarding being pregnant, she was pregnant when she went in. She lost the baby, and the sheriff's department had several people come in plain clothes and ask her to sign paperwork that said that she was requesting an abortion. While she was in there and having conversations with me over the phone, letting me know about all the things that were going on, there was a deputy in there that shoved her up against the phone and she wound up with a black eye. Now, at some of the deputy meetings, I did discuss in detail and I gave names about those deputies, and there were many, meaning more than 2, 3, 4, 5. I think there was probably more than 7 that actually treated her poorly, spoke to her poorly, wouldn't give her water. And then when she wanted to have visitation rights, and I came to visit her, she was all of maybe about 5 feet tall, maybe 130 pounds. And they had 3 to 4 deputies bringing her in shackles. So again, I just want to make it clear what happens and give you an example of someone who's been in the position of being there, lost a baby, what she had to go through, the confinement, being in solitary confinement, being assaulted by a deputy, and all of those things. Please take all of that stuff into consideration and think about
Thank you,
next
Michelle.
month what should be on the agenda.
Thank you. Chair Kennedy, we have one person signed up for public comment online, and that's Yvette Correa. If you may mute yourself, please. Yvette?
Yes. Can
We
you
hear
hear me?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Okay. There's so much to say, but I wanted to talk about, since we know that deputy gangs exist, even though, it's incredible how, Villanueva and a lot of people will never admit to it, even though we have testimonies of people that have already admitted to it. That should really concern us. It's not a secret. So why continue to deny it or try to call them whatever you want? The point is they're groups. Nobody likes to be called gangs, but even now in the public, a lot of people that don't consider themselves gangs get labeled as gang members, and that's been an issue too, where people aren't even in gangs, but the sheriffs will put them in the computer as gang members. So they don't like to be called gang members, but they like to label other people as gang members. And I don't know if your commission, if your Civilian Oversight Commission, I don't know what they're doing, if they understand the same things that I understand, such as are you guys looking at their uniforms? I mean, this is very obvious. They wear their little pins, and when they have like golfing events, even get, even not just here in sheriffs, the sheriffs, it's a nationwide thing. People get license plates. I don't know if you heard of that. Don't tread on me. All kinds of things. I've even seen that here in Compton, and that was one of the ones that was in the White House riot. But I seen one, and I let Carrie Blackinger know from the Los Angeles Times, and I also sent a
Thank you, Ms.
picture of
Correa.
it.
Your time is up. Thank you.
The Lakewood sheriff uses the spade.
We just what?
Chair Kennedy, this concludes our public comment.
Okay. Okay, that concludes our public comment. So we're going to adjourn this meeting, and I want to advise everyone that we'll have our next regular meeting on February 15th at 9 a.m. here at St. Anne's. In the meantime, please follow us on social media or visit our website at coc.lacounty.gov for updates. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.